Hi, and welcome to London Lights. Today I have as a guest on my program, Cameron Marshman. Now, Cameron is a London musician, like most Londoners, an all-around good guy. Cameron's a guest on our program today because he's one of the elite few group of Londoners that actually attended the tremendous Great Music Festival known as Woodstock 1969. I'm excited to hear about Cameron's adventures and his experiences at Woodstock, at the festival that we all have known about for so many years and was such a pivotal moment in rock music history. Cameron, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, you have no idea what I went through to try and find you, to find someone from London that was still alive and still had their marbles and was able to tell us about the great Woodstock Music Festival. And you were there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, for our viewers who may need a little bit of a refresher on what Woodstock was about, let me just read this description from Wikipedia. Woodstock Music and Art Fair, commonly referred to simply as Woodstock, was a music festival held August 15th to 18th, 1969, on Max Yasgur's dairy farm in Bethel, New York, 40 kilometers southwest of the town of Woodstock. Billed as an Aquarian exposition, 3 days of peace and music, and alternatively referred to as the Woodstock Rock Festival, it attracted an audience of more than 400,000 people. 32 acts performed outdoors despite sporadic rain. The festival has become widely regarded as a pivotal moment in popular music history, as well as a defining event for the counterculture generation. The event's significance was reinforced by a 1970 documentary film, an accompanying soundtrack album, and a song written by Joni Mitchell, another Canadian, that became a major hit for both Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Matthew's Southern Comfort. Music events bearing the Woodstock name were planned for anniversaries, none of them, of course, compared to the first. In 2004, Rolling Stone magazine listed Woodstock as the number 19 on the 50 moments that changed the history of rock and roll. In 2017, the festival site became listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Cameron Marshman, you were there. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You attended the Mecca of music festivals. Tell us what brought that about. How does a guy from London, Ontario, decide he wants to head to Woodstock?
Okay, it was all very last minute, especially for me. I think the first person with the idea was probably John Mischik, and I think it was he was a guitar player that I played with for about 5 years or more, and I think that it was advertised in Rolling Stone. They were talking about it. I didn't know anything about it, but either him or Jack Whiteside or Jack's brother Jim, they were probably all reading Rolling Stone and they heard about it. And then they just asked at the very last minute if I wanted to go, and I said sure. And there was one other guy named Dave Mawson, who was a friend of Jack's from high school, and he drove. And it was basically just we weren't planning on it for a long time. And I really can't even remember asking my parents if I could go or getting the ID together to cross the border, all that stuff that you think about now about crossing borders and all that stuff. It just didn't think about it. And we just did it at the last minute and had a great time.
That's great. And I can't wait to hear more about the festival. So, of course, like any great event, somebody behind it wants to promote it and make money. And do you remember getting any tickets, or did you have tickets beforehand, or how did that go?
We went intending to buy tickets when we got there. And I think we may have heard that it was a free festival on the way, but once we got there, it was, it was already decided that everyone was getting in free. So it gave us some extra money for food, So.
Yeah.
So I think, but yeah, we intended to buy tickets.
And I think what happened is the promoters and organizers were just overwhelmed with the response. This horde of massive humanity responded to this invitation to hear these tremendous 32 musical acts And some of them included, for instance, Canned Heat, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, Joe Cocker, CCR, Johnny Winter, Santana. I mean, the list just goes on. This is the cream of the crop of the rock
Yeah.
music world at the time.
Well, yeah, and we were people who were just deciding to take up music as a career at that time. So basically, what drew us, I think, the first thing that drew us was the music. Everybody I knew was trying to see as many groups as you could then, because there were so many and they were changing so fast. And I think that it was a little bit of the counterculture thing that kind of drew us too. We were aware of it and those kind of things. So, but mostly the music, I think so. And there were good people there that we wanted to see.
For the maybe some help and some guidance for you in the band that you were in at the time, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Inspiration. I suppose guidance too, but it's mostly inspiration, because it's not as if you're getting really close to these musicians. You're just seeing them be successful,
Right.
And making people happy. So that in itself was enough. And that was a massive dose of it, because not only were all the groups happy, but all these people were just happy. They had nothing to be upset about. They had a hard time getting there. They walked, but they were happy, really happy. It was really nice.
And how old were you at the time?
My birthday is August 14th, so I just turned 18.
18 years old.
As I was arriving there, I just turned 18. Yeah.
Now, I was a little bit younger at the time, but I can imagine if I mentioned to my parents, I'm heading to this rock music festival, Woodstock, and I don't think they would have given me permission.
I may not have. I don't remember. It would really surprise me if they raised a fuss about it, but I don't really remember anything about them reacting to it. And I think they gave it the okay. They just, he'll be fine.
So you all pile in the car. Now, I've heard stories about this massive cars descending on Woodstock, and the interstate even had to be closed down. So what was your experience? Did a bunch of you pile into a car and head down, and did you get stuck in that, or what happened?
Well, there were 5 of us in the car, and no, there was no massive traffic jam that we experienced. Maybe the interstate being shut down might have been from New York to upper state. Maybe from Canada down, it wasn't as bad. So basically, the traffic moved along fine, and it was good scenery. I remember Jim, one of the guys, freaking out at the number of trees. He'd never seen so many trees in his life. And look at all the trees. Oh my God. So it was, all in all, it was a nice drive.
Well, where did you park? How close did you get to the
Well, that is a good question. We just parked at the place where they wouldn't let us allow us to go any further, which was quite a ways from the festival. So we walked quite a ways. They just weren't letting cars any further. And I believe the parking was free.
Okay, so I assume that you're there. You've got your tent, your sleeping bag, your cooler of food to get you through the weekend, and you start this walk. Is that what happened?
Well, no, we started, we got all our stuff out and started to walk, but I don't recall having a lot of stuff. Okay. So it wasn't as if we were carrying a big burden when we walked. It was just the distance that we walked that made it a little tough. But yeah, and we had no idea how far we'd be walking, but we knew it was coming.
But it was a long walk.
Yeah. Before we heard music, it was a long way. In fact, it wasn't until we finally got where we could stop walking that we heard the music.
And I understand, I think the festival started on the Friday, went Saturday, Sunday, and then it went overtime. They didn't get all the acts in. So Jimi Hendrix closes off the festival Monday morning, playing the Star Spangled Banner and some other songs. So who are the acts that you really wanted to see when you headed to Woodstock?
The acts that we ended up seeing, we were there for all of Saturday and some of Sunday morning. I would have really liked to see the band, but they played later on Sunday. And I, of course, would have wanted to see Jimi Hendrix, but he was later on too. Now, it seems to me that the first day was almost like a folky day. Joan Baez, I think, played the first day, and I think the Incredible String Band. I would have liked to see them. They played the first day, and people like Arlo Guthrie. So it seems to me, folk first day, then it went in rock, then it kind of branched out into anything. But we saw some great groups: Sly, Santana, Janis Joplin, Creedence Clearwater, The Who, let's see, Joe Cocker, and a few others.
Great. Well, we'll get to the details on those in a moment, but we do have to take a commercial break in a minute.
Okay.
So just in terms of that, you're walking. Would you say you walked a few miles?
I think so. Yeah. Oh,
and then
yeah.
Finally, what do you see when you see this wide expanse of humanity?
Basically, just like you said, a wide expanse of humanity, and they're basically just sitting around looking at the stage. It was surprising that so many people could be sitting so far away, and still, I want to see what's down there. And that, like, it's in comparison, the stage is a pretty small part of the happening, but everybody was focused on the stage, the music, and then later on, like all the things you saw, like the mudslides, we saw a bit of that, but this was just people making the best of the situation. Okay, you got rain and you got mud, and they made the best of it. So you'd see things like that, and people walking around.
It must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, it was. It really didn't need to be policed. There didn't need to be a security force there, as far as I could tell. I can't remember seeing any police.
Well, that's something they say about Woodstock. I mean, here's this massive humanity, and it was a peaceful festival. It truly was a peace and love event, and there's 400,000 people there.
Yeah, that's what makes it a real accomplishment, is because no matter how peaceful people are, when there's that many of them, you would think there's going to be some sort of a problem, but it was like utopian. Like you just look around and everybody is happy.
Wow.
Really
okay,
great.
Well, look, that's very cool. We're going to take a short break for commercials, and then we'll come back. Okay. And I want to hear about some of your favorite bands, what you saw, and some of the other things that we talked about before we.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. Stay with us, viewers. Okay, we're here on London Lights with Cameron Marshman, one of a select small group of Londoners who attended the great Woodstock 1969 Rock Music Festival. Again, Cameron, what an event, what an experience. Tell me, you've done this walking now, you've walked for a few miles, it's kind of wet, you see people running around in the mud, and you finally approach the stage. Who's the first band that you hear?
So it was Canned Heat, and they were in the middle of their set. Okay, so we arrived, and they hadn't, it wasn't because they were introduced that we knew it was Canned Heat. I think John Mischik recognized the mole. He said, "Oh, that's Canned Heat." He recognized the guys, and it was the original lineup of Canned Heat. Minus they had a new guitar player. Henry Vestine was the original, and I think they replaced him with some guy named Mandel. I don't know if it was Harvey Mandel. I don't think so, but they were great. And because they had the mole on bass, and he's like still very active. He's Tom Waits' bass player now. So you think, wow. And Tom Waits is he's so current in that. And for someone playing that festival to be around and really kicking butt still, so that was pretty neat,
That's cool.
Yeah, that was the first band we saw. Yeah.
Well, I remember when the soundtrack came out for Woodstock, and a buddy of mine had just bought the first cassette tape machine, portable one, that I had ever seen, and he lent it to me. And he had a tape in it, a cassette tape of the Woodstock music. And I was attending Sir Adam Beck School, secondary school at the time, and I would walk to school with this cassette machine draped around my neck and headphones, listening. And of course, one of my favorite songs, "Going Up the Country" by Canned Heat, who performed at Woodstock. Even my kids today love that song. Did you happen to see that performance?
No, I don't. They may have played it before we arrived, or I just didn't recognize it. I think it was released as a single after Woodstock, I think. Okay,
Yeah.
so I remember them just it was basic blues. No, that song is blues too, but I don't remember that particular song. I would have liked that. I like that one a lot too. Yeah.
And of course, there's so many other classics. There's I'm Going Home by 10 Years After, Elvin Lee
Yeah,
and
yeah.
10 Years After. Did you see their performance?
No, not 10 years after. No, no.
Okay, well, what are some of the bands that stand out for you?
Okay, I think the Who stand out because I'm pretty sure that this was the first time or one of the very early times they did the whole Tommy album, rock opera live, and it was pretty amazing because we've been listening to it a lot, and we've got a lot of complicated songs on that. And to see them playing it live, and Townsend putting on the show that he put on was quite a treat. And one of the things that happened during their show was when Abby Hoffman kind of stole. He kind of, grabbed the microphone at one point and started talking about John Sinclair being in jail for 10 years because of a bad marijuana bust. And Townsend took his guitar and he slammed him with the guitar. And really, I mean, it was such an amazing thing to see because he went flying. I'm sitting there. That's gotta hurt, and Townsend, to this day, I've heard him talk about it later. He said he wasn't really angry about what he was saying. He said he agreed with festivals being, an outlet for these kind of things, but not during their show. That was just rude, and that was basically the only piece of policing I really saw myself. I said that was Townsend doing the policing. He said, "You get out of here," and it was a treat. That was an ultimate thing. And another one I have to mention, Sly and the Family Stone, because I'd heard of them, and I may never have seen them as a band. I'd heard really good things, but I did by accident sort of see them, and it was great to see them because they reminded the whole crowd how important it is just to dance to the music. So to see all the people, first just being together, but then to see all the people so electrified and dancing, that was quite a treat too. So that made their show pretty special.
Well, for all the great acts that were there, I've been astonished to hear so many say that the Sly and the Family Stone performance was probably one of the best performances at Woodstock.
Yeah, I put it right up there. Right up there with the Who. One of the best. I don't know that Jimi Hendrix's performance was all. The thing that everybody remembers about that was the great. I mean, the anthem. Okay, yeah. I don't know that at that point that. I've never heard anything else about his performance except that. So I don't know. So Sly and the Who I would put and Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, no, tell me about that, because when we had our pre-interview discussions, you were telling me how Grateful Dead was on the stage and they were kind of putting everyone to sleep. And of course, people have no place to sleep. They probably are sleeping during the concert, but then they're followed by CCR. Tell me about that.
Okay, it was interesting because that's kind of a complicated story because I fully understood the story after hearing a few other people's stories. And the first story that I heard was Carlos Santana about arriving there and then getting a glass of Kool-Aid from Jerry Garcia and said, have some of this. Like he was really just sharing a drink with him, I think maybe Carlos knew about it, but he didn't. And then it's kicked in and he realized, wow, I want to get out there playing as soon as I can or I won't be able to. And I think maybe the Grateful Dead, either they had a lot of that Kool-Aid or they just really used the Woodstock session to work on their jamming skills, because they got up there and they were just jamming. They were meandering jamming. And then what happened was I heard John Fogerty's story. This was a good one because he said he got up after they were finished and he came in on a helicopter with the group, and he said, and we're looking at the stage, looking at the monitors, doing this, and he said, oh, I just thought I'd take a walk around the stage. So I walked to the front of the stage, and he looks out and he says, they're all asleep. The Grateful Dead put them to sleep. And I said, yeah, that's what happened. And then maybe in his mind, he thought of that as opportune, but either way, they got up there and they were the exact opposite. They didn't jam at all. They just played their hits, and they were all good, nice short songs that didn't go on and on type thing. And they were impressive. It was like hearing the radio and a really good radio and just rocking songs. So they really woke people up. It was a nice way to be woken up, for the people that were sleeping. I wasn't sleeping myself. I remember the whole thing, but yeah, they were great. Yeah, great band.
I cannot imagine seeing Creedence Clearwater Revival at their prime. They were the ultimate hit machine. They're writing these 2-3 minute songs that are just so appealing. And I just read like 6 months ago that the #1 song on the Billboard charts again was "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" by CCR. It made a comeback. I mean, that's the power of the songwriting and performances by John Fogerty and CCR. Mm-hmm. So I can just imagine them following the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, wow. They were. Yeah, no, you know what? In the Grateful Dead's defense, I think it was just a period in their development. Okay, because right after that, they made that Working Man's Dead album. That was terrific. It was a fantastic album, and they developed a lot of roots in country and bluegrass and Jerry Garcia. But Woodstock, it wasn't, they didn't turn in great performance. And John Fogerty, he capitalized on it.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened there. One of my favorite performances from both the movie and from the cassette tape that I would listen to on my way back and forth to school was Soul Sacrifice by Santana.
Yeah, they were good. They were just developing too. That was a brand new group as far as I can tell. But yeah, they were lively. They were almost as good to dance to as Slide, because it's got the Latin beat and a very percussive, great drummer, and I think they had percussionists. But yeah, they were good.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Carlos had taken a drink of this Kool-Aid offered by the Grateful Dead. Well, of course, the Kool-Aid was laced with LSD.
Right.
And I understand from Carlos Santana's biography that he didn't know what was in the drink necessarily, but he got pretty whacked out, and it was time for them to start playing. And he just said, I'm a man of faith. I prayed to God, just help me get through this set and stay in tune, because this LSD is not sitting well with me. And of course, he puts in the performance of his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
such a highlight.
Yeah. It was a good start for him.
And,
for sure.
You saw that performance?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, you're killing me here. You're killing me. Now, of course, the movie came out. The soundtrack came out. So you must have rushed right out and seen the movie, right?
No, I wasn't all that interested in it. To this day, I've seen little clips of it, but I never went to see the movie, didn't buy it or anything like that. And it wasn't that I had anything against it. It was just maybe in the back of my mind, I might have thought they were cashing in on it, but I didn't really have that much against it. I just wasn't that interested. There were other movies to see, so.
Okay.
So we know. I'm glad it did well. I'm glad the whole thing did well, because if nothing else, it was a good promotion for the music industry, and really, which is an industry, like the recording industry was still fairly young. Yeah, and the rock and roll industry was really young. So this, like it said, it was the 19th most pivotal moment. And I think because of the number of people that went there, everybody realized there's something going on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this industry, and it can always change, and it can always get better, but you have to be patient, and you have to go with the flow. And this was just a bunch of people that went with the flow, and look where it took them.
Of course, the 1960s were a very tumultuous decade. And this kind of capped off the decade. And what I found interesting was when they tried to reproduce Woodstock and the event in the following years and months, including Altamont, where the Rolling Stones played, and it couldn't be replicated. There was a murder at that concert. with the Rolling Stones, with the Hells Angels, providing security. Go figure. And and Woodstock is now a memory. So you come back to London. You've been at the concert. Does it inspire you and as a musician? You're still playing today.
Oh, absolutely. I can remember I lived with my parents in Byron, and there was a group that lived they had a place called the Bluebell Inn, and they were Joe DeAngelis he's the singer with Thundermug. I'm sure you've heard of them. And Dave Baker and Paul Kersey, who were from the Bluesman Review, and Wes Miller from the Village Guild, and Roy Thompson from the Village Guild. They had formed a band called Bodmas, and they lived right in Byron. So I could walk to their place. That was one of the first places I went, and I told them about it. And it was because Paul Kersey had told me how great Sly was when he'd seen him, and it was nice to be able to tell them about it. And the whole festival, the news was back by then. It was big news really fast. So Cameron, people were really interested. It was great to share with people. Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I bet. And here you are,
it's
50 years.
50, yeah. 50,
and you're still
52.
talking about it.
Oh yeah, still it's a pretty vivid memory. It's not as if I talk about it a lot, but it was nice. I called Jim up and talked to him about it. And one of the things that Jim said that I had sort of forgotten was when we left and we're driving, we came to the border, and he said the people at the border asked us where we were going, and we told them, and they said, "Oh, you better just stay home." And we knew then we should keep going.
Cameron, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're out of time. Thanks for being here on London Lights.
No problem.
And so glad and excited to hear about these stories. You take care of yourself and keep rocking.
Will do, all the time. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you.